One of the areas to think about in life is what questions you ask yourself, because the questions are probably one of the most powerful drivers of the decisions you make, what you think, and how you actually go about your life. I remember when I was younger, I didn't grow up in the healthiest environment, and oftentimes there'd be questions that don't have an answer that would get asked. They'd be like, why me, why this, why that? Over time, I've learned to ask myself empowering questions to be able to change the direction of my mindset so that I have more capability, more effectiveness in every single choice that I make. Hey, Legendary Excellence, it's Gary. I'm here today in the Chicago airport. I'm at O'Hara. We are waiting for a flight. So originally I had a really close connection for my next flight, and there had been a medical emergency on board, so it was a really unexpected event. Fortunately, they were able to get the person off the plane. They had a doctor on board, and they really saved the day. But it was funny because I was planning the entire time to be able to make a really short connection to my next flight, and unfortunately that didn't happen because of obviously trying to save somebody's life for what they were doing on the plane. So it was unexpected, but we've got a little bit of time. It's a nice opportunity to be able to talk a little bit, to think about origin stories. Sometimes I get asked about what and how I got started with everything, what we're doing, and exactly where we're going. And today, we'll talk a little bit about origin stories. One of the areas to think about in life is what questions you ask yourself, because the questions are probably one of the most powerful drivers of the decisions you make, what you think, and how you actually go about your life. I remember when I was younger, I didn't grow up in the healthiest environment, and oftentimes there'd be questions that don't have an answer that would get asked. They'd be like, why me, why this, why that? Over time, I've learned to ask myself empowering questions to be able to change the direction of my mindset so that I have more capability, more effectiveness in every single choice that I make. Questions also matter tremendously because it's the way that you interact with other people. One of the organizations that I founded, SotaSoDak, just started with a simple question. The question was way before we actually had even the concept of having a nonprofit or having an organization developed. But the question was, do you know how to weld? I was sitting there right across the street from me back home, and I was talking to the young man that lived across from me, and I just asked him, hey, do you know how to weld? Because we were talking, he was talking about how he was going to play video games all summer, and it just didn't make sense to me. It's like, why play video games all summer? I've done it before. Probably did it way more as an adult than I did as a kid. But the thing is it's not a great way to be able to spend time. And so I asked him, do you know how to weld? That simple question sparked SotaSoDak. It sparked that young man working in agricultural tile. It sparked so many positive things that came from just that simple question. In your life, you want to think about what questions you're asking. Who are you talking to? What are the powerful questions that you can ask that actually make a difference, that can be able to help you to be able to create a better world? That simple question, do you know how to weld? That's what started SotaSoDak. Speaking of questions, the question I ask right now is, if you're in South Dakota and we have all of these construction projects coming up, how can we make sure that it's South Dakotans building those projects? That question is critical, because when we look at the size and scale of the projects scheduled for our state, right now there's $1.7 billion of projects, 2 wind turbines and then a gas turbine within the state. There's a number of other projects. But the idea is to be able to look at these specific projects as an opportunity to be able to create pathways, to be able to identify ways that we can be able to get people that currently aren't working, that don't have opportunity, into a position where they're into good, strong, very, very well-paying jobs that can help them to be able to grow their lives, their careers, that can be able to make the state stronger. Something to note with these projects is that sometimes it might just have a couple of regular employees once the project's actually built, but there's a lot of maintenance that can be able to go into it. So it's something to think about, is how do we put more maintenance work in the hopper? We have some great schools. We have Lake Area Technical College, we have Mitchell Technical College, a number of different technical schools. We have different organizations that have apprenticeship programs that can be able to help us to be able to accomplish this. But we have this tremendous opportunity now to be able to decide, grow, and really nurture our state, to be able to make it something that's successful for South Dakotans. I've worked in power plant maintenance, specifically nuclear power plant maintenance, for several years. And in that experience, oftentimes there'd be crews from all over the country, but sometimes you'd have crews that they weren't the people from that community running the jobs. And it's sometimes very frustrating and a little bit confusing because you oftentimes have very talented, very intelligent people that are available there to be able to do that. Something else with this is that it's not a diversity initiative. This is about honoring treaty obligations. We think about self-determination and economic sovereignty. For our 9 tribal nations within the state of South Dakota, this is a tremendous opportunity. This is a way for us to be able to build a pathway, for our young people to gain access to these careers, to be able to show and demonstrate this is how we can be able to create very, very viable long-term careers that people are successful with. I've had several conversations with several different tribal education departments. I've had a couple conversations with members of the education programs and different groups. And there is such an opportunity here where we have people that are very talented, that are very skilled, that have great fast hands, good brains, and we want to be able to get those people to work. I know that there's some places within our community where there's very high unemployment rates, and those high unemployment rates result in some very negative things. And we want to be able to help reduce the incidence of that, to be able to help to give people opportunity. Oftentimes when people are unemployed, they can wind up in criminality. We spend $150 million a year in South Dakota to incarcerate tribal members. That's a very difficult use of resources, and certainly there are some people that need to be incarcerated, but when we have the opportunity to step back and make a decision and say, hey, we can be able to find maybe a career pathway that's beneficial. Maybe that's something that we can be able to use to be able to leverage proven models like the Minnesota Training Partnership's 5-week training program that has existed, that's worked very well, that had a 90% success placement rate, and be able to leverage that to be able to help give us something successful. Within this program, there is a sense of urgency. The sense of urgency comes from the fact that ground is supposed to break in early 2026. We have a number of different challenges. We're pursuing congressional appropriations funding. I've met with Senator Michael Rounds' office. I've also met with Representative Dusty Johnson's office. And we're having discussions about this. I'm also reaching out to several different organizations within the state to be able to identify funding, as well as working with different tribal organizations to be able to create conversations. I'm scheduled for in early January to give a presentation about exactly what this program will look like, how we can be able to create co-ops, essentially like a single co-op for education for tribal members, to be able to help create clear pathways to help us to grow our communities, to build our communities, and most importantly, to be able to help our young people to know that they're loved, respected, and needed desperately in this world, because we need people that can be able to build and maintain our power and infrastructure. We need people that can build and maintain families. We need people that can build and maintain success. This is happening. These projects are happening. At the end of the day, the question is it going to benefit our tribal and rural communities? Is it something that we can be able to get an opportunity to be able to see grow? And so with that, I hope you live with legendary excellence. It's a really exciting project. I'm fascinated to see how it develops, and I've got a number of conversations scheduled this weekend to continue along in developing and creating this program. So God bless you. Live with legendary excellence.